Hello, everyone, and welcome to BodyBags. I'll be your reviewer for today. I'm Lonnie from Tats, and this week, I'm sure you already noticed that we've been. I was the one who came up with the idea of let's do a week of reviewing movies from the year 1968, and yeah, and just I don't know why. Just I was thinking about that when I was told it was my turn to come up with a year that we can review movies, and yeah, just all of a sudden 1968 just popped into my head because, just excuse me, just for me personally, it just seemed like 1968 seemed like quite a year for horror films, and it seemed like it was, some groundbreaking stuff happened in 1968, and um, yeah, we had stuff like Night of the Living Dead, which was a real game changer, and really, it's like thanks to George Romero and his team, it's like now, he created what would end up becoming the blueprint for the modern zombie film, and just so many other great films come out that year, and that's why I just thought it'd be interesting, folk, we haven't done that before, so I thought it'd be okay, like hey, let's do 1968, why not? And another movie that was pretty much a real game changer in the world of horror. And, I decided I was going to go ahead and review this one. I'm sorry if this has been done before, but I just thought, given the year and everything else, and this is just the one I wanted to talk about. Adapted for the screen and directed by Roman Polanski and based on Ira Levin's classic novel, we have Rosemary's Baby. And I don't think I really need to go into too much. I think everybody already knows this movie. The story and everything else. But just so much about this movie and a lot of the things surrounding this movie is fascinating. And, yeah, originally I think everybody kind of already knows the story. The story is about Rosemary Woodhouse and her husband Guy. They move into this new apartment in this, apartment building called the Bramford, and it turns out that this building has had like a long history of horrible events happening in it, and like rumors of witchcraft and just murders and nasty accidents, all just kind of different things going on there. But they decide they want to make their home there, and Rosemary, she's kind of like a pretty much like a just a typical wife, and she's a sweet, good person, just very pleasant, lovely human being, and very generous and kind and everything. And her husband Guy, now Rosemary, she's played by Mia Farrow, and Guy is played by John Cassavetes. And Guy is, they're almost like the yin and yang. So it's kind of in a way they kind of complement each other very well in the sense that like she's always very sweet, very polite, very bubbly. Usually always looks on the bright side of everything. Always has a kind word and everything else. Whereas Guy is he's more cynical. He can be a bit of a jerk sometimes. Just yeah, so they're kind of almost polar opposite. They're almost like an opposite attract kind of a couple in a way. But anyway, so they move into this apartment, and you have quite an ensemble cast in this movie too. You have not just Mia Farrow, John Cassavetes, Ruth Gordon, who it's like I always remember her. I'm always going to remember her from the Clint Eastwood, Every Which Way But Loose movies. It's like that cat, poor old woman, it's like that goddamn baboon and all that stuff, it's like that's what I'm always going to remember her from. But she's really great in this movie too. I don't think she won, but I think she was nominated for an Academy Award for this movie. But so anyway, so they move into this apartment, and Rosemary has a friend, an old guy named Hutch. Excuse me. And he's telling them about the history of the building, and there's like a lot of horrible things that happen, but they go ahead and move in and everything, and Rosemary's in the process of trying to make it a home and make it a home for the two of them. And then Guy, in the meanwhile, he's a struggling actor. He's trying to get a break. pretty much like all he can get is kind of like low rent theater, and he's done a Yamaha commercial, and that's kind of like his big ticket right there. And so anyway, so they're trying to settle in and all this kind of stuff, and doesn't take too long before like weird things start happening, and they end up meeting this, or Rosemary. She's in the laundry room, and she meets this young woman, and they start talking. What was it? I think the character's name was Terry, and so they're talking and everything, and then it's not very long later. It turns out that Terry is actually staying with Minnie and Roman Cassavetes, who is Guy and Rosemary's neighbors, and immediately they find that Terry committed suicide. They find her dead on the sidewalk and stuff like that. And Roman and Minnie, they come up, and they discover that she's dead and everything else. And then pretty soon, Minnie comes over, and she's like talking to Rosemary and all this, and it's like, in a way, kind of like, okay, it just seems like she might be kind of lonely, just kind of a lonely old lady, but at the same time, it's like, whoa, okay, it kind of seems like she's a little nosy, she's kind of prying, kind of, just a little, always wanting just a little too much information. But so her and so she invites Rosemary and Guy over for dinner, and they get to know each other, have a good dinner and stuff, and then so it's weird because Guy, all of a sudden, out of the blue, he just decides that they should have a baby, and that they should start trying. He's already, he's got the calendar, he's already got set up and everything else, and so they decide that they're gonna they decide on this night that they're gonna try, they're gonna make love so they can try to conceive a child and everything, and they're eating dinner and stuff, and then afterwards, Rosemary, she's not feeling very well, she's getting tipsy. And so she has this very, very, bizarre dream, which you guys already know. And then, where she thinks she's being impregnated by something other than her husband. But then she realizes, like the next day she wakes up, she finds out that she's pregnant and stuff like this. And then you get into easily the best psychological horror film you've ever seen in your life. I don't want to give away too much. Like I said, I think you guys already have seen this movie. You already know what to expect from it. But easily, because that's the thing, this movie, this is definitely the most faithful adaptation of a book ever done. Polanski really did. I mean, word for word, pretty much adapted Ira Levin's book to the letter, And so... yeah, and then Rosemary, she starts suspecting things, like she feels like there's something wrong with the baby, and as soon as it comes out that she's pregnant, the first thing Guy does is he goes and tells Roman and Minnie, and then the first thing they do is, they tell her, that there was a doctor that Rosemary went to see, played by Charles Grodin, and they're like, no, you're not going to see him, you're going to go see this other doctor, Dr. Saperstein, and that doctor is played by the legendary actor Ralph Bellamy, and then things just feel like they're not going right, and Rosemary starts feeling like like people are messing with her and all this other kind of stuff, and then it's like there seems to be something wrong with the baby because she's having these incredible pains that she's never had, and all this kind of stuff, and it just seems like the pain is not stop, it won't go away, and she's scared to death, she's worried, and all this other kind of stuff. But everybody's just kind of like always blowing her off and tell her, oh, don't worry about it. Oh, you worry too much, and you're reading these books, and you don't need to just just stop being an idiot and just trust us and believe everything we tell you and all this other kind of stuff. And then just the news keeps getting tighter and tighter and all this kind of stuff. And then as the story progresses, then it's weird. Okay, her friend Hutch, comes over and he meets Roman, and he's like, it's like, I think there's something about this. Let me find out more about this guy for you. And then surprisingly enough, Hutch turns up dead, and all this kind of stuff. And then Rosemary becomes convinced that the people in this building, especially Minnie and Roman, that they're pretty much they're Satan worshipers, and they want to get her baby, and she wants, they want to get her baby so they can sacrifice the baby and everything else, and just, but you end up getting, like I said, the best, like just the psychological horror that Rosemary endures in this movie is unreal, and like the whole movie, you're going along and you're just like you can't you're like you're like, oh my God, is something really wrong? Or is it just this woman is she insane? Is it probably because she's pregnant? I don't know, like what's going on here, so on, so forth, and everything else. But yeah, then, we get to the conclusion. So, I'm not going to spoil it for you or anything like that. But Rosemary's Baby, this movie was a game changer. And it scared people so badly, and it really freaked people out. And this movie was kind of the precursor that would go into the 70s, with all these, movies about the devil and movies about Satan and satanic cults and witchcraft and all this other kind of stuff. This would lead into movies like, The Exorcist, The Omen, and on, Black Candles, all these other, horror films that, and it became a big thing. But yeah, this movie was a game changer. It definitely, Roman Polanski, who's like, now he's one of the scuzziest guys on the face of the planet, but I had to admit the guy made a good movie. But it brought him real like attention here in America, and showed him as a a craftsman, writer, director, and things like this. Mia Farrow, I mean, she really like blew everybody away with her performance as Rosemary, and showed she was a leading lady of incredible talent. But unfortunately, though, like a year later, because this came out in 1968, and then 1969, when unfortunately, what happened to, Roman Polanski's wife, Sharon Tate, and her friends, because of the Manson family and stuff. And there was a period of time where people thought that, because Polanski made movies like this, which is about, demon worshiping and witchcraft and all this other kind of stuff. And there was a period of time where people thought that, Polanski was definitely into, like satanic worship and all this other kind of stuff. And maybe, and this movie is about, this woman who thinks this religious cult is wanting to sacrifice her baby. So maybe in real life, maybe Polanski, life imitates art and all this kind of stuff. And maybe Polanski belonged to this cult, and they, that was kind of the deal, was to sacrifice Sharon Tate and her baby to, and all this, and all these things just kind of came out. But over time, though, this movie has definitely become one of the most enduring and, just genuinely scary horror films. There are some moments. This movie doesn't rely on jump scares or any of that kind of stuff, but it relies on paranoia, and it relies on building tension and creating atmosphere and suspense and everything else. And it's definitely one of the best scary films ever made. And like I said, this movie definitely, ended up changing things for, in 1968 and everything else. And that was one of the reasons why I wanted to talk about it. But anyway, so yeah, I definitely recommend Rosemary's Baby. It's, it definitely looks like an old film and all that kind of stuff, but it's so well made. It's so well put together. And, it's like, I know the movie was 136 minutes, so that's 2 hours and 60 minutes. Quite a bit longer than your normal run-of-the-mill horror film, but you know what? Here's the thing, the movie does not waste time. I will say it's like, the movie, it's lengthy, but there's a reason for it. This movie's not just drawing out, sorry. This movie's not just drawing out unnecessarily. This movie's not just, the whole point of this movie is just to try to waste the audience's time. It's like, if it's going long for a long period of time, there's a reason for it. And everything is all to serve the story and to, and to really make it, an immersive cinematic experience. And, as a matter of fact, they did this as a remake here for television here a few years ago. And it's, without the commercials, was 3 hours long. And it's just the same thing. It's the same exact movie and everything else. Just, is the pacing is stretched out longer and everything else. The only difference is they race swapped Rosemary, And this one, it was Mia Farrow. In the remake, the TV remake, it was Zoe Saldana, and that was it. They just race swapped Rosemary, but it was the exact same movie. Nothing different, nothing changed, and everything else. But I would still say this is the much better version, and yeah. And this movie, it will play with your head a little bit, and but yeah, I think I've said more than enough. I'm just repeating myself. You guys already know that, but anyway, so yeah, Rosemary's Baby. I cannot recommend this movie enough. Yeah, it's an all-time bona fide horror classic, and it is for a reason. So yeah, so if anybody took the time to watch this, I thank you for doing it, and I appreciate you for doing it. I also hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, would you please leave it a like? If you haven't already, would you please go ahead and subscribe to the BodyBags channel? We have a different reviewer, one for every day of the week. I am the Saturday reviewer. We have a great group of guys, and I'm really, really happy and honored to be in their presence. Everybody's doing great stuff. More fun theme weeks coming and everything else, and more year weeks and more label weeks and everything else. We got some good stuff coming. So hopefully you guys will stick around. So that's it, everybody. Take care. Have a good night. I'll see you later.